My girlfriend sneered when I proposed at her birthday party. Then I exposed the secret screenshots. My name is Javier. I'm 29 years old and I'm a doctor. I work at a hospital dealing with soul-crushing shifts, but I've always been the type to give everything for the people I love. This is the story of how I fell in love with the wrong person, how she broke my heart in front of everyone, and how it forced me to open my eyes. It all revolves around Laura, the woman I thought would be my future, but who turned out to be a lesson I never asked for. I met Laura 5 years ago in a coffee shop near the university where she was studying marketing. I was an exhausted resident surviving on coffee and study notes. She walked in with a smile that seemed to light up the whole room. She came over to my table and said, "That coffee you're drinking looks like poison. Let me order you a decent one." We talked for hours. We laughed. And before I knew it, I was hooked. She was charismatic, fun, with an energy that drew you in. But now I see that from the very beginning, there were signs I ignored. Laura never wanted commitment. She'd say things like, "Let's take it slow, Javier. Life is meant to be enjoyed." Foolishly, I thought that with time she would want the same things I did, a life together, a home, a future. I believed her when she talked about one day having a house or traveling together. I fell in love with that idea, not the reality. Meanwhile, I paid for things for her, not because I had money to spare, but because I wanted to make her happy. I covered her rent a couple of times, fixed her car when it broke down, things like that. I wasn't keeping a running tab, but I know it amounted to thousands of dollars over those 5 years. I thought it was part of building something together. She never gave me clarity. We weren't officially a couple, though she would introduce me as her special person. If I tried to talk about anything serious, she would change the subject or make a joke. Sometimes she'd flirt with other guys in front of me, saying she was just being friendly. I let it slide, thinking it was just her personality. My friend Anna, a nurse at the hospital where I work, warned me 1,000 times. She said, "Javier, she's using you. She doesn't love you the way you love her." Anna is the type who tells it like it is, but I didn't listen. I was blind, trapped in the idea that Laura and I were meant for each other. Everything came crashing down on her 28th birthday. I wanted to do something big. I planned a party at a nice restaurant with 35 guests, decorations, and an incredible cake. I spent months organizing it and saving up for an $8,000 ring. It was simple and elegant, just what I thought she would like. I was nervous, but excited. I thought this would be the beginning of our life together. That night, Laura was radiant, dancing and laughing. When the moment came, I asked for silence, got down on one knee, and pulled out the ring. With my heart in my throat, I said, "Laura, I want to spend my life with you. Will you marry me?" She laughed, not a nervous giggle, but a full-blown laugh that pierced right through me. "Seriously, Javier," she said, covering her mouth as if she just heard a hilarious joke. "You're like a brother to me. We're best friends." "No." The room fell silent. I felt everyone's eyes on me. Some looked at me with pity, others with amusement. I didn't know what to do. My mind went blank. I put the ring away. I said, "Thanks for being so clear," and I walked toward the exit. I didn't look back. That night in my apartment, I broke down. It wasn't just the rejection. It was the realization that I had been living a lie. Laura never saw me as a partner. I was her support system, her bank, but never her love. It hurt, but it also made me see the truth. I had wasted 5 years and thousands of dollars on someone who only used me. I felt stupid, but also furious. Not with her, but with myself for not having seen it sooner. The next day, Anna called me. "Javier, are you okay?" They told me what happened. I told her everything, and for the first time, I didn't defend Laura. Anna listened and then said, "It's time for you to stop being the good guy. Make her understand what she lost." I didn't want revenge, but I did want Laura to face the consequences. I wasn't going to yell or fight. I was going to be cold, calculating. And so, my plan began. I decided to cut off contact. When she texted me asking for something, as she always did, I would reply hours later with a simple, "I'm busy." I stopped answering her calls. She, who was used to having me at her beck and call, started to get desperate. But that wasn't enough. Laura lived off her image as a perfect woman. So I thought about how to expose her without stooping to her level. I started posting on social media, subtle but clear. I posted screenshots of messages where she asked me for money with captions like, "When you give everything and get nothing in return." I didn't use her name, but everyone knew who I was talking about. I posted a receipt for her car repair, another for the rent I'd paid. People started talking. Her friends, who had previously seen her as the victim, began to question her. Her family, who had always liked me, wrote to me to apologize. Laura sent me furious messages saying I was ruining her life. I didn't respond. Her world was starting to teeter, and I was just getting started. The following days were a whirlwind. Laura kept texting me, first with anger, then with pleas. "Javier, please, let's talk." "I don't know why you're doing this," one message read. Another said, "I need your help, I'm in trouble with the rent." I ignored every word. I had spent years running to her rescue, but not anymore. My silence was my weapon, and I wielded it without mercy. Each unanswered message of hers was another brick in the wall I was building between us. Meanwhile, the social media posts were doing their job. I didn't need to say much. The receipts and messages spoke for themselves. A screenshot of her asking for $500 for an emergency with my comment, "When you think you're helping someone who loves you." A receipt from the auto shop where I paid for her car repair with a simple caption, "Things you do for love." I didn't use her name, but her friends and acquaintances weren't stupid. They started connecting the dots. Some wrote to me privately, saying things like, "I had no idea Laura was like that," or "I always thought you were too good for her." Others, those closest to her, unfollowed me, but I didn't care. The damage was already done. One night, while having coffee with Anna at the hospital, she told me, "Javier, I'm proud of you. You're finally setting boundaries." Anna had always been my moral compass, the one who told me how things were. "But be careful," she added. "Laura isn't one to give up easily. She's going to try something, I know it." I nodded, knowing she was right. Laura wasn't the type to accept losing control, but I wasn't going to back down either. And sure enough, Laura fought back. A week after the party, she posted a story on her social media crying, saying she was going through a tough time and that someone she trusted was slandering her. She didn't mention my name, but it was obvious who she was referring to. Some of her friends sent her messages of support, but others who had seen my posts didn't fall for the bait. Her perfect victim facade was starting to crack. I heard from a mutual friend that her family was upset with her. Apparently, her parents, who had always spoiled her, found out how she had treated me and gave her an ultimatum. Either she became responsible for her own affairs, or they would stop helping her. Without my financial support, Laura started to have real problems. Her apartment, the one she loved so much because it fit her vibe, was expensive, and without me paying half the rent, she couldn't afford it. I heard from another friend that she had received an eviction notice. She tried to ask me for help, sending a long message about our friendship and how we'd always supported each other. I read it and didn't reply. It was incredible how, even after everything, she still thought she could manipulate me. Things weren't going well for her at work either. Laura had always been good at selling herself as the perfect employee, but her colleagues started to notice she wasn't delivering. I was told her boss called her out for delays on an important project. Apparently, she was so busy trying to save her image that she neglected her responsibilities. I didn't take pleasure in her misfortune, but I didn't feel sorry for her either. She had chosen this path. While her world was falling apart, I was starting to rebuild mine. One afternoon at a medical conference, I met Lucia. She was a freelance graphic designer and had an energy that made me smile effortlessly. We met during a coffee break when she offered me a coffee because, according to her, I looked like I needed one. I laughed, remembering how Laura had used a similar tactic years ago. But with Lucia, it was different. There were no games, no ulterior motives. We talked about a little of everything: my work at the hospital, her designs, our shared love for bad movies. At the end of the conference, she asked for my number. I didn't hesitate. We started dating, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like someone truly saw me. Lucia didn't need me to pay for anything or solve her problems. She was independent, confident, and best of all, she made me laugh. One night, while having dinner at a simple restaurant, she told me, "Javier, I like how real you are. You don't try to impress me, and that's rare." I didn't know what to say, but I felt something I hadn't felt in years: peace. Laura, meanwhile, kept trying to contact me. Her messages went from pleading to rage and then to a strange silence. I heard from a friend that she had tried to badmouth me to our circle, saying I was obsessive and that the proposal had been a crazy surprise. But no one believed her. The truth has a way of coming out, and my posts, though subtle, had planted a seed. People started to see her differently. Her closest friends stopped inviting her out, and her family remained distant. One night, I received a call from an unknown number. It was Laura using a friend's phone. "Javier, please, we have to talk," she said, her voice trembling. "I don't know what I did to make you hate me so much." I don't hate you, I thought. I just stopped being your puppet. But I said nothing. "I'm sorry if I hurt you," she continued, "but you can't keep doing this. You're destroying me." I hung up without responding. There was nothing left to say. She had destroyed what we had long before. At the hospital, my life started to feel lighter. My colleagues noticed the change. "Javier, you seem more alive," a nurse told me during a shift. And it was true. Without the weight of Laura, I could breathe. I focused on my work, on my patients, on myself. I started going to the gym again, something I had given up because Laura always said I didn't need to change. I also picked up my photography hobby again, going out on weekends to capture landscapes. It was on one of those outings that Lucia joined me. We walked through a park talking about everything and nothing, and as the sun set, she took my hand. Nothing more needed to be said. Laura, on the other hand, kept falling. I found out she had lost her job. I don't know the details, but it seems her boss got tired of her excuses. Unemployed and with mounting debt, she had to leave her apartment. According to a friend, she moved into a smaller place, sharing with a college roommate. She tried to contact me one more time, sending a message that said, "I never wanted to hurt you, Javier. We were good together." I didn't read it. I just deleted it. We weren't good together. I was good for her, but she was never good for me. My plan wasn't to destroy her, though. I suppose that's what happened. I just wanted her to face the consequences of her actions. Every message I ignored, every post I made was a way of saying, "I am no longer yours to use." And it worked. Her world, built on lies and appearances, collapsed. Mine, on the other hand, was beginning to shine. But it wasn't over yet. Laura still had one last move up her sleeve, and I was about to take a step that would change my life forever. What happened next? I'll tell you in the next chapter. I'll just say that sometimes the universe has a strange way of balancing things. Laura didn't give up easily. After months of ignoring her messages and watching her life unravel, I thought she had gotten the message. I was no longer her savior, but I was wrong. One afternoon, as I was leaving the hospital after a 12-hour shift, I saw her standing at the entrance. She was thinner, her hair was disheveled, and her eyes held a mix of desperation and defiance. "Javier, we have to talk," she said, planting herself in front of me. There was no way to avoid her without causing a scene, so I nodded and followed her to a cafe across the street. We sat at a secluded table. Laura launched into her speech, the same old one, but with a more desperate tone. "I know I hurt you," she said, her eyes welling up. "I didn't appreciate you, but I can change. We were good together, don't you see? Give me a chance." It was the same old Laura using her charm to manipulate, but this time it didn't move me an inch. I looked at her, feeling more pity than anger, and said, "Laura, you didn't love me. You loved what I could give you. That's over." She fell silent, her mouth half open as if she couldn't believe the Javier who always ran to help her was telling her no. I stood up, paid for my coffee, and walked out. It was the last time we spoke face to face. After that encounter, I knew Laura had hit rock bottom. A mutual friend told me she had moved back to her hometown, a small place a few hours from the city. Without a job, without her expensive apartment, and without the support of her parents, who were still furious about how she treated me, she ended up working in a call center. She was living in a small apartment, sharing with an old friend from college, and was barely making ends meet. Part of me felt a pang of guilt, but then I remembered her laugh at the party, her contempt in front of everyone, and the guilt vanished. Laura had reaped what she sowed. While her world was crumbling, mine was beginning to shine. Lucia, the graphic designer I met at the medical conference, had become an essential part of my life. She wasn't like Laura, who always had a hidden agenda. Lucia was direct, funny, and didn't need me to solve her problems. We spent weekends exploring the city, going to craft markets, or just walking through the park with my camera. One night, while we were having dinner at her apartment, she looked at me and said, "Javier, with you everything is easy. I don't know how to explain it, but I feel like we can just be ourselves." That was the moment I knew I wanted to spend my life with her. A year after the humiliation at Laura's party, I made a decision. I took out the ring I had bought for her, the same one I put away that night when I walked out of the restaurant with a broken heart. I hadn't touched it since, but now thinking of Lucia, I felt it had a new purpose. I didn't need a big spectacle. With Lucia, things were simple and real. I took her to a beach we both loved right at sunset. As we walked along the shore with the sound of the waves in the background, I got down on one knee. "Lucia, I don't want to imagine my life without you. Will you marry me?" There was no laughter, no drama, just her eyes filled with tears, and a yes that made me feel like all the pain of the past was worth it to get to this moment. The news of our engagement spread quickly. Anna, my best friend, was the first to congratulate me. "I told you, Javier, you deserve someone who truly loves you," she said with a smile that barely fit on her face. My colleagues at the hospital threw a small celebration in the break room with cake and bad hospital coffee. Even my longtime patients would pat me on the back and say things like, "Doctor, you look happy and that makes me happy." For the first time in a long time, I felt like my life had direction, not because someone depended on me, but because I had found someone who walked beside me. We planned the wedding in Costa Rica, a place Lucia had always wanted to visit. We wanted something intimate with our closest friends and family on a beach with the ocean as our backdrop. While we were planning everything, I found out something that brought this story full circle. Laura tried to contact me one last time through a social media message. It read, "Javier, I heard about your engagement. I'm happy for you. Really? I just wanted to say I'm sorry." I didn't reply, not because I was angry, but because I had nothing left to say to her. Her role in my life was over. I heard from a friend that Laura had tried to rebuild her life in her hometown, but things weren't going well. The call center job was grueling with long shifts and a salary that was barely enough. Her debts were still growing, and her old friends, the ones who used to put her on a pedestal, no longer spoke to her. Her family, while still supporting her, no longer saw her as the perfect daughter. In a way, Laura was trapped in the consequences of her own choices. I didn't need to do anything else. The universe, as I said, has a strange way of balancing things. Meanwhile, my life with Lucia continued to grow. I got a promotion at the hospital, which allowed me to lead a project I had always wanted, a free clinic for low-income communities. Lucia, with her design talent, created the logo and advertising campaign for the clinic. Working together on something that helped others brought us even closer. Every day with her was proof that true love doesn't ask for anything in return. It just makes you better. I started going to the gym again, picked up my photography hobby, and even dared to take cooking classes with Lucia, though she laughed at my failed attempts to make pasta. The wedding was everything we dreamed of. There were no extravagant luxuries, just laughter, music, and the people we loved most. When Lucia walked towards me in a simple dress with a smile worth more than any jewel, I felt all the pain of the past melt away. Anna, who was my witness, gave me a wink from the altar, as if to say, "I told you so." During the toast, I raised my glass and said, "Sometimes life breaks you to teach you how to build something better. Thank you all for being here, and thank you, Lucia, for showing me what real love is." Applause filled the air, and for a moment everything was perfect. Now as I write this, I'm sitting on the balcony of our home in the city with the sound of the street below. Lucia is inside working on a design, humming a song I don't recognize. Life isn't perfect, but it's ours, and for the first time, I feel like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. Laura somewhere is still dealing with her decisions. I don't hate her. I don't need her. I don't think about her. I just hope that one day she learns what I learned, that you can't build anything real on a foundation of lies. My life now is a testament to the fact that pain can lead you to something better. The ring I once held in front of the wrong person now shines on the hand of the right one. This isn't a story of revenge, though I admit that seeing Laura face the consequences had its satisfaction. It's a story of how sometimes the worst moment of your life can be the push you need to find the best. And in the end, the universe always finds a way to balance the scales. This story is not just one person's experience, but a mirror reflecting a highly common reality in our society. The personal details may differ, but the underlying lesson is a shared answer for many similar situations. When we look beyond the pain of Javier's public humiliation and Laura's eventual downfall, what we actually see is a familiar cycle. One person giving endlessly in the name of love, while the other quietly accepts those sacrifices without ever offering true commitment in return. In many cultures, generosity, patience, and loyalty are praised as virtues. We are often taught that loving someone means enduring, supporting, and proving our devotion through sacrifice. But the uncomfortable truth is that these values can easily be twisted into silent permission for imbalance. Javier believed that patience would eventually turn uncertainty into commitment. Laura, on the other hand, lived comfortably inside that imbalance, accepting help and attention without confronting the responsibility that real love requires. The result was a relationship built not on honesty, but on assumptions, one person dreaming of a shared future while the other quietly benefited from the present. Stepping away from the emotional details, what ultimately broke the cycle was not revenge, anger, or even confrontation. It was clarity. The moment Javier walked away from that restaurant after hearing laughter instead of acceptance, a painful but necessary truth surfaced. Sometimes the most important boundary we can draw is the one that protects our own dignity. I think many of us recognize ourselves somewhere in that moment, perhaps not in a dramatic public proposal, but in smaller choices, times when we gave more than we should have, hoping love would eventually balance the scale. And when we finally stop giving endlessly, people may accuse us of being cold, selfish, or destructive. Yet setting a boundary is not destroying a relationship. Often, it is simply revealing what the relationship truly was all along. When someone loses access to the benefits you provided and suddenly calls it betrayal, that moment says more about the foundation of the relationship than any argument ever could. I believe the deeper message here is not about punishment or justice, even though Laura ultimately faced the consequences of her own choices. Life rarely needs us to orchestrate revenge. More often, the simple act of withdrawing from a toxic dynamic allows reality to do its quiet work. What Javier gained in the end was not the satisfaction of seeing someone fall, but the freedom to rebuild his life with honesty, mutual respect, and a partner who stood beside him rather than leaning on him. And perhaps that is the most powerful transformation of all. The moment when someone who once begged for love realizes they deserve something real. So here is the question that lingers after everything. If you discovered that someone you loved had spent years benefiting from your loyalty while never truly seeing you as a partner, would you quietly walk away and rebuild your life? Or would you feel compelled to reveal the truth, even if doing so shattered the image they carefully built in front of everyone else?